Good morning. I'm Christo Morr, a professor at York University in Health Informatics, joined together with Rachel De Silveira Gorman, a professor in critical disabilities at York University, and Professor Yahya El-Lahib from the University of Calgary, the Faculty of Social Work. We have been together for 2 years working on accessible and inclusive AI for people with disabilities, and we will be discussing our work and what we have seen throughout this process. So the main reason for doing this research together is really what I've noticed throughout years, that while I'm working in AI, the existence, of course, of AI biases, but mainly that people in engineering, they have the knowledge of the techniques, and that they are aware, mostly, not always, on the existence of biases in AI software, but they are not aware of the implications of AI and their impact on society, generally speaking. At the same time, people in sociology or in social sciences and humanities, they know about AI. They don't know how really does it work, and what are the tools available, and how people are designing and implementing AI systems. At the same time, they have a critical knowledge that we all need in society. It's these critical lenses that they have to discuss and analyze power structures in society are important, and they are lacking on the side of engineers, data scientists, and computer scientists. So we mounted this project together so that we can exactly do that, do this intersection of or interdisciplinary work, and bringing more people from different universities from many countries into a symposium, 2-day symposium, to discuss the accessibility and the inclusion of people with disabilities in the work of AI. And based on that, we have co-edited a book on how to shape AI so that we can have a just world. I'm wondering, Rachel, how did you see this work evolving from your perspective?
Thanks, Christo. First of all, as someone who's been in critical disability studies for a while and working in a faculty of health, it's amazing to me and to our disability communities how much focus there is on health in general, broadly, that does not at all take into consideration the perspectives of people with disabilities. So disability studies is a tiny area of critical thought, and health research is enormous and overwhelming, and we're up against this kind of uphill battle. In general, it's been really important. I think about disability studies as part of a social movement for disability justice. And when we think about social movements, we're really thinking about trying to put the tools for social change back into the hands of the people. And over the years, we've thought about how we can do that with something like the internet, or during the pandemic, Zoom. Does it help people with disabilities or not? How can we change it? So learning about AI, which I've been able to do through working with you over the years, I've seen a lot of the ways in which it can be really damaging or really intensifying the inequities that already existed. And this is what happens with tools in general under capitalism. It intensifies the inequities. But also when we start to learn how these tools work, we can start to think about how we can take back the tools for our own communities. So I think the most obvious thing I learned at the beginning was that AI relies on enormous data sets. So if we're relying on all of the data that exists, that data is racist, it is ableist, it is sexist. And so, of course, it's going to reproduce that. And then learning that there are techniques that we can work with computer scientists to develop, where we're going to focus on smaller data sets, or focus on what people in marginalized communities want to focus on. That to me is a really liberating idea. And that's what keeps me focused on or interested in AI, because I want to find ways to take it back and put it in the hands of the people. So thinking about co-design. Also, some things to mention. I think what maybe the larger community doesn't understand is that medicine, rehab, all of these sort of areas of research where AI is being, I guess, at the moment, used the most. These areas of research and practice are often about fixing people as the problem instead of changing social barriers that people are up against. So people become the problem that need to be fixed. And a lot of that is really starting from this problem. Not that computer scientists are thinking this consciously, but the unconscious piece here is that we're looking at disabled people as not performing well in capitalism, and when we come up with tools to help them, it's maybe to help them perform better in this society as it is, instead of thinking about how to change the society. And so that's some of the ways that many technological tools, including AI, help to reproduce and accelerate ableism in medicine and rehabilitation and even in education. So maybe going to Yahya right now, something that I've really enjoyed working with you in this project is hearing how you have been able to expand and develop your thinking on post-colonialism or anti-colonialism in relation to AI. Do you have any comments to make on that?
Yes, absolutely, and thank you for the space. I think for me, what really drove me into this project was observing and watching how AI in a neoliberal system have been deployed to offer this magic tool as to fix disabled people, but to fix disabled people to fit into an ableist society, as opposed to, like what you mentioned, as opposed to really looking at the ways social problems have been manifesting in the everyday life of disabled people. So for me, the draw was how to call out not only this whole false promise of access and inclusion that have been really promoted in the AI age, but also how that is shaping the everyday experiences of disabled people on a larger scale, whether it's at the global level when we think about access and inclusion, how this access and inclusion is coming at the expense of disabled people in the global south, but also how that is being shaped also by a new form of colonization that we haven't witnessed. You know, like some scholars would call it colonization on a domestic level, at the domestic level. The other thing that really was an important draw for me is this whole idea of how technological industries have been really heavily invested in AI, and by technological industries, I mean this whole idea of multinational corporations are heavily investing in AI to shape the global scene at the moment, where a lot of social issues, human rights issues, have been erased or sidelined just because of how these industries are shaping public perceptions about AI. And if I may give an example where those tensions have been really utilized and clearly outlined for me in this project. AI has been promoted as a tool, right? Like if I give an example of a hammer is a neutral tool, right? You use hammers to drive a nail, but also in the wrong hands, they might be violent tool used in a violent form. However, a hammer is a neutral tool that it has nobody is investing in its existence. But AI is not a neutral tool. So this whole promise of efficiency, of productivity, is creating a false assumption that it's a neutral tool, and that's how it's been promoted. But those who are benefiting from this non-neutral tool are benefiting also from the violence and from the process, not only process of development, but process of utilization. So as a social work educator and professional, a lot of access, for example, to programs, social programs that have been are accessed through rights of so many different marginalized communities. Now, access to these programs are determined by algorithms and AIs without any consideration of the implications on those issues. So I think those are really important considerations that we need to call out and to question why we need to think about AI beyond tech fixes and the false promise of those tech fixes.
You know, the idea of tech fixes has been around for a long time. Even after World War II, there was a huge push by certain people to adopt basically technology fixes for social problems. And this is a simple solution because it's good for governments so that they don't have to debate in parliaments and have discussions with people and the population about the citizens, basically about the political choices. So if everything is really can be reduced to a tech problem that can have a tech fix, then there is no need for the political. And it's good for companies because then there is an opportunity to innovate and to be also promoted as a person or as a company that is trying to do good. And that's good also for the company. And of course, they can make money at the same time. Though what we're trying to exactly unearth here is that there is no tech fixes really. I mean, it doesn't exist. I mean, social problems are social problems, and the choices that we make are really political, and that's why the political debate should be on the forefront. So even inclusion, I mean, of course, I'm amazed sometimes, negatively amazed on how, like we did reviews of how people are using AI for people with disabilities, and so many projects, they were testing AI tools, researchers were testing AI tools for people with disabilities without any person with disability included in the project. And in the review, we didn't find any AI research at that moment in time when we did the review, like maybe a year and a half ago. So there was no question of bias or testing for bias. What we know that bias existed. Some AI tools, they just choose, for example, women for the never choose women for a job, choose always men for a job. Some other tools will be biased against people of color and so on. Though we did find very little to no discussion of AI biases. So what's important that even for me I mean, I think that we need to think, and specifically engineers, that we are not only researchers, we are human beings and citizens in a certain place, and we need to think about the society and what is our work has, what kind of work impact has our work on society. So even inclusion might not be enough, really, as you said, Yahya, that there is a colonialism expected. There are capitalist powers behind the scenes. So only justice, maybe oriented design, who asks the questions, who decides, who benefits, and who is excluded from the process of building and deploying these tools. So, for example, it was eye-opening for me to see, or it was important for me to understand that. For example, there is a colonialism embedded in AI, not only in terms of data, but data itself, it's extracted against the will of the person. So it's just extracted and being used to develop these large language models without any consent. And so then the question of data sovereignty is important here, and specifically for people, indigenous people, for example. And also, we are all, in fact, working for free for large companies. We're liking something, forwarding something, commenting, and all of these are coded, are digitized. I mean, so our life is really encoded a certain manner and extracted and reduced to digital points in a certain algorithm. And that's the scary part, is how it will be used. We have currently no control on how to use those tools and how they are developed, because they are developed by a few companies, 5 companies maybe, or 6, and without our input. And they are unelected people who decide how to develop all of this. I don't know, what do you think, Rachel, about this challenge?
We're at an interesting political moment with the rise of fascism, but at the same time, I think part of what's driving populism is people are genuinely questioning a lot of things that are happening. And I think also at the same time, engineers and other folks who go into rehabilitation and all of these other fields are doing it because they genuinely on some level want to help or do something productive. And I think we really can't do anything at this point, and this has been the way for decades, maybe a century or more, without recognizing that we're in a capitalist framework. So as Yahya said, correcting my point, it's not a neutral tool, actually. We do have to begin from the point that we are in a capitalist society, and we can't ignore that part. We have to recognize how things are unfolding within it, and begin from the social problem, and begin analyzing that social problem from the margins, from the perspective of the people who are experiencing the negative effects of that social problem. Once we do that, that's why humanity invents tools, is to solve a problem. I think that, Christo, that technocratic society you were describing, the tools lead, but humans invent tools to solve problems. So beginning in the social problem, recognizing the social universe we live in at the moment, in this epoch, which is capitalist, and that itself is a problem, and really democratizing these processes, right? So there are frameworks we can use, and these are some of the conclusions we came to in the book. Frameworks like design justice, data sovereignty. Part of what we'll have to do for the next step is do some education with communities themselves about what AI is, how it works, really offering some basic education. And I think our interdisciplinary collaborations to this point have given us ideas about how to go forward with that, because we've learned so much from each other. And then that sets people up into a position to have participatory governance. I think in any society where there is revolutionary change happening, that the general population is very well educated in whatever the social problem is. So they're starting from a perspective of really understanding the problem with, colonialism, capitalism, and these are abstract terms in many ways, but like the actual problems on the ground that they're facing, and what drives them, and what reproduces them, and why we can't solve them so easily. And once the general population understands that, or the communities we're working with, there's a lot of creativity that can come, and that's when we can actually start to design together, and then the computer scientists can come in and help and support in that process, and say, oh yeah, I actually have a tool that could help with this. If that's what you want to do, maybe we could try it this way. And there's transparency in working together. I think that we have, when we look at the history of social movements, we do see beautiful examples of how this could work, how it's worked in the past. I mean, often it doesn't work for long because we're facing capitalist and colonial, and there's lots of violent suppression of that kind of thing. But we do have ways of doing it, and I think that can be really powerful going forward. And people with disabilities are the community where we can start. In many ways, we're a community of people where we kind of rely on life-saving tools and interventions. And the more we have control over them ourselves, the more likely we are to save our own lives and thrive as a community. So it's an exciting, I think we're at an exciting place if we think about what we could do with disability justice and design justice and AI. Yeah.
If I may just build on what you said, Rachel. I think one of the important takeaway for me from this project is that the recognition that AI was never set to solve social problems or people's problems. It was set really to solve corporate problems and neoliberal problems that have been really entangled in the ways our social problems are being even understood. And that realization have been normalized in a neoliberal globalized age, where a lot of the issues that have been really manipulated through the use of AI, or whether through the development and manifestation of AI, have excluded people who are in, like, this whole idea of promoting AI development have been intended for. So I think part of the problem is we haven't, like, AI is advancing in a speed of light, and we still don't have even ways to govern its production. And the risk of that is the reality that it's reshaping how do we relate to each other, how do corporate world, business world are relating to people and the consumption of AI, but also to the state that is supposed to be governing and protecting all of our rights. So those tensions need to be a little bit interrogated, because just thinking that AI biased, or like thinking about AI biases during the development stage would solve problems or social issues that will emerge from the use of AI is a little bit naive, in my opinion. I always remind myself of Calvin Lawrence reminders that bias is actually a form of violence, right? So when we think about just centering AI biases during the development without looking at the social implications, we end up with AI systems being weaponized against people, against anybody who doesn't conform to what those multinational corporations are invested in. Even states, like the weaponization of AI continues to show the ugly face of just relying on technologies and tech fixes as the ultimate goal of AI. And maybe one last point is the fact that this whole promise of AI as an access, it will improve access and inclusion. I question that, because who is getting access and who is denied those access, and then how is access and inclusion is really facilitating a meaningful participation for disabled people and for other marginalized groups, when we know that indigenous Black communities, women, disabled population, and like the list goes on, those have been already erased from mainstream and dominant knowledges. So how would they even be acknowledged or exist in a space where there is a lot of what we call epistemic violence that have been systemically marginalizing and further marginalizing those communities? So I think part of this project is a reminder that there is a need to step up our goal and not buy into this false promise that it will help us be efficient and effective and productive, because it's just relying on this is serving only those who are benefiting from artificial intelligence.
In fact, sometimes I wonder if we have gained in efficiency. What does it mean? It doesn't mean that really, for example, for a doctor or a healthcare professional, that they will take more time to see the patients and then talk to them, but it will mean really to see more patients at the same time. So then it will fall back to the exploitation. So that's why I think that the AI has been colonial. I mean, if we see that the activity is in extraction of resources, and we can hear it all the time that data is the new oil, right? So exactly, it's the same mentality in the colonial mentality that the resources are just out there and we can extract them because we have the technology to do that. But the indigenous people of whatever geographic area in the world, they don't have the tools. So we'll do good by extracting them and converting them to some kind of a product. For those who would like to see more of this discussion, they can refer to our upcoming book, Beyond Tech Fixes, towards an AI future where disability justice thrives, coming in July 2025. It was an enriching experience with both of you, and hope we'll do more.